Test, test. Hello, hello. Test, test. Can everybody hear me? Just waiting a moment to make sure everything works. There's a dog down there. Maybe, I'm not sure if it's visible. It's a bit weird of a setup, as you can see here. It's kind of a chaos right now. I have a camera set up here, and you see my camera over there. The audio is like hanging right here, so I don't know if it works. This has to work. I can't do many different changes. Yeah, the dog might also complain a bit because he's kind of imprisoned with me in here, so sorry for the occasional whine in the background, but he's fine. Yeah, so today I want to talk a little bit about pen testing and a bit of story time as well, because it's kind of a weird subculture and there's a lot of interesting things I think that a lot of people don't know about, and yeah, I think it's quite interesting to talk about it. Oh, Frito, it's okay, it's all right. Sorry for the whining. So, okay, you can hear me, you hear the doggo, so perfect. So, I guess I start with the beginning. Oh, yeah, so by the way, the stream won't take long. I will talk a little bit about a story, tell you a little bit. It's okay, I'm sorry. He's imprisoned here because he's alone with me right now and he has separation anxiety. So he's missing a person right now. Anyway, so this won't be a super long stream. Let's see how long it goes. I have a list of stuff I want to get through, and when we are through, then I will stop. Anyway, so basically this all started with me discovering like pen testing in November 2006, and that's when I joined like a 3-letter kind of like very small online community in a forum. I guess that's always how it kind of started, you know, how it used to start. Maybe people nowadays don't know this anymore, that there were things like online forums and stuff like that. So that's what I discovered. But and I joined that, but I only discovered this after a video that I found, and I'm sure I didn't find this on YouTube. That must have been some other platform where I saw that video back in the day. And I want to play a little bit of that because that was the video that really like motivated and triggered me getting into this back then in 2006. So let me switch to this view. So you can search for the video yourself. I won't play the audio because I don't know if that's like copyrighted material. But that's the video that I stumbled over when I was just browsing online, and you can see the quality is terrible. Typical, you know, 2007 or 2006 or something YouTube image quality. But that just blew my mind at that age. Like, I was a teenager in school. I always wanted to be good at something, and I thought that is so fascinating and so crazy, and so I wanted to be able to do that as well. And that's when I discovered that online forum. That particular video held very dear to me because that was kind of like the top. Those were the craziest people at the time, and they were the people I aspired to and kind of the level I wanted to get at. And nowadays this is not very special anymore, but at the time that was absolutely insane, and it's still good. Like, to get to that level you still have to invest hundreds of hours probably practicing that stuff. And there's one clip specifically I'm waiting for that I want to show you as well. So yeah, kind of I was hoping, I don't remember exactly when that was in the clip, but yeah, that was the, yeah. So this particular clip, Bonkura, not sure how to pronounce his name, that was my inspiration. That really like sparked this all for me. I thought he was so smooth and he had such an interesting, unique style to him, and that was really motivating me. That's where I got a lot of my inspiration from. Anyway, so when I joined, the problem is like, how do you start? And I just wanted to quickly go over the typical start, how somebody as a teenager and me in 2006 seeing a video like this would have started. And the typical pen, probably most of Germans started with, is called Super Pirate. So this is an ink remover pen called Super Pirate, and people were building out of that their own pens. So the great the thing for pen testing, what you want is the tools that you are using. You want to use pens that are somewhat balanced, right? You want them to be same on all sides because you are playing with the weight. And so a Super Pirate was a typical thing because every school child would have that in your your school supplies. And what you would do is you would take other pens, and I remember that day when I started. Let me change the camera here as well. Yeah. I remember the day when I started because I ran through the whole house and collected all the pens I could find at home. And what you would do is you would disassemble all your pens. For example, here I went to the store and just bought a random pen. And you would disassemble them. And what you were interested in were these grips of the pens. So for example, I have here two grips now that I get from disassembling the pen. And what you would do is then you would try to fit them on top of the caps of like something like the Super Pirate, right? So this is a very terrible basic pen modification that you would make to basically create a tool that would allow you to able to use and do these tricks and things better and study and learn. Now, interestingly, what we would also do is we would be interested in these tips because a lot of these tips are metal, and so they have a weight to it. Now, this particular pen is a fake, so this is actually a plastic tip. Like, that's worthless for pen testing in general. So we didn't like pens that have plastic tips. And then when we had these metal tips, we would add them at the sides as well to add additional weight. Because basically what we are looking for when we're building our own tools is that we get a very balanced pen. At least the basic version is basically a pen that is very balanced. And what you want is you want to figure out a good ratio between the weight of the pen, the body itself, and the weight at the end. Theoretically, you could have like a very light middle and extremely heavy sides, and that makes it easier, but ideally you want to find a good balance. Oh, you don't like, I guess the dog is also upset about the story. It's not really interesting. Sorry about that. Gotta endure it. Anyway, so you would try to find a good balance that suits your, like, what feels good in your hand. And when I built this first Super Pirate mod, this is when I started to learn my first tricks. And I remember that day just sitting on the sofa in front of the TV and just practicing. Hundreds and hundreds of times this pen would fall out of my hand trying to, mimic the stuff that I've seen online. And I follow the basic tutorials of the first basic tricks. And I remember learning the first basic components and tricks that you would do in around the first day. So the different tricks you would learn at the beginning is a trick called infinity. That would be like this. There's also a double infinity, or like stuff like that. I don't even remember. No, that's an infinity extended, what I just did. A double infinity, I think. Something like this. I don't even remember. The thumb around and the index around is also spinning. Oh my gosh. Yeah, very out of practice. An index around the index. Sonic, no, that was a shadow, sorry. A sonic is that. A pass is simply passing it along. And a thumb spin is spinning it like on top of your finger. And you can see it would fall down all the time. And actually, for me, that was the first time in my life that I basically found a hobby, something that interested me, something that was motivating and driving me, but that was also horrendously frustrating. Because you look at these videos and it looks so easy, and you're sitting at home, your fingers are cramping up trying to do these basic tricks, and the pen would fall and 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 fall, and you would always constantly fail, and then one time you kind of had a crappy one succeed. And I think that kind of, I'm sure I was at the time already. I'm a person that is very relentless when it comes to this kind of stuff, but that really, I guess, taught me or showed me again that you constantly fail all over the time, and then you make very, very slow progress. To get to the level of what you have seen in the videos, that would have taken you like half a year or a year of basically daily practice to get to that level. Yeah, and we were a bunch of weirdos in those online forums. Like we would organize gatherings and meet up in cities. You know, we were teenagers, so it was kind of a big deal to take the train into the next big city and meet up with other weirdos you know from the internet. Try to explain that to your parents. And yeah, we would meet like in a park. We would buy our drinks at a supermarket and just hang out in the park, and we would sit in circles and just spin our pens the whole day and exchange ideas for different pens. Now here's the thing, right? I showed you how you can build a pen, a basic pen, but people were really refining this kind of craft of creating and building um, uh, these kind of pens. And so there were amazing mods, especially if you've seen the video from before. There were pens that were famous, you know, in our subculture, and you would really want those. So there were people that had them and other people that don't, and you wanted to try them out, and you were maybe trading even pens, and that was crazy. But to get these pens, I let me show you again the video. So let me go back to the video. I lost my mouse, I'm sorry. So to get these pens seen in these in this Japanese pen video, you need to trade with Japanese people, because it turns out, and that was kind of a first for me coming from a small village, kind of mind opening, that these pens, they don't exist all over the world. So there are pens that are unique to Japan, and there are pens that are unique to Germany, and there were pens that were unique to the US. So in order to be able to build the pens shown in these kind of videos, you would have to trade internationally with people. And so we were organizing each ourselves in also international forums and trying to find trade partners to send pens to Japan and receive pens from Japan. And I was and I was very proud of certain pens I was able to trade, from example, from Japan that were difficult to get. One thing that was really interesting to me at the time was that there are companies that are international pen manufacturer companies that you know that exist in the US and exist in Germany, but they have different pens for the German market and for the US market. It was extremely frustrating knowing that this company existed in both places, but the pens don't. Specifically, there was a certain pen that used to exist in Germany, but then wasn't anymore. And that was when I learned about import controls and regulations about that certain caps of pens needed to fulfill certain design things. So for example, if a child would swallow these caps, that they could still breathe. That's why there are airways through it. If you ever wondered why certain pens are, you know, not fully closed and there's actually air going through, because the idea is that children might play with this, swallow it, get it stuck in their air pipe, and so they can still breathe. And so that was kind of interesting to learn about this weird market that, you know, you as a regular teenager never thought about. Yeah, so we started trading, and there's another thing, for example, it was kind of a huge deal in our community. So the pen I have here is called Hybrid Gel Grip, short HGG. Sorry for the camera. However, this is actually a new version. This is not the version we were used to. This one sucks because the grip that we were just talking about, that is very important to build pen modifications, was interlined with like the transparent pen itself, and so you couldn't really remove it. Well, there are techniques, you know, you push like very thin metal things in there and you are still able to remove it, but you have these holes in there and it's really not really useful. The previous version, which I can quickly show you as well, was actually a pen that was kind of sought after a lot, especially internationally, because it mostly exists. It was very typical and common and cheap in Germany. And so this is a pen that we would buy in stores and send, for example, to Japan and trade for other pens. Yeah, so another thing that I learned about was import taxes, because, you know, there are some shops internationally that would sell you, obviously, like Korean pens. And so we thought we could do, you know, collect the money in Germany, and one person is just buying them all and ship them to Germany, so we would save shipping cost. And we were teenagers, we didn't have a lot of money, so everybody was just trying to scrape as much together as possible to get as many pens as possible. This is like money we would save for months just to buy a couple of pens. And so I was one person that was organizing such a mass order internationally, and I was receiving this full box with these pens. Now, they got intercepted by the tax authority in Germany, and I was being sent this letter that I need to come there, present a bill to show how much it costs, and then I can take it with me. So I printed out the bill that it cost and brought that with me to the tax authority office. And then was the problem, you might know this if you order some stuff from China or so, they sometimes put very wrong values on the bill that is attached to the package they sent you to basically evade the tax authorities on import taxes. So the bill that was on the package didn't match the one that I actually paid with. And so now they were accusing me of basically doing import tax evasion kind of stuff. And I was 15. My mom was with me there at the tax authority office. It was clear to them that I didn't had bad intentions and I didn't try to evade taxes or anything. I just didn't know that this is a thing. And so this is where I learned to have to pay import taxes. It was also quite funny because every pen turns out to have kind of like different import tax regulations. So a pen with gel inside, like a gel pen, would be very different from like a pencil. And there were all kinds of different pens in the package, and every single pen basically had to, sorry for the camera, had to be individually like categorized by them. So that was kind of crazy. Yeah, and one pen, this is not, by the way, this is not the pen, it's just the same pen kind. But this was, for example, a pen that we have seen in Japanese pen testing videos that just looked incredibly beautiful. And we knew the mod itself. It's called a Dr. Katie. And so there was this colored version because we only knew like a gray-black version of it. And that blew our mind and we really wanted it. And as far as I know, I was the first German to ever be able to trade a blue-red Dr. Katie version back in the day. Nowadays, it's pretty easy to get them. But yeah, I was really proud of that. Hey, Frito, hush. Yeah, sorry about the dog whining. So yeah, this was like the time in 2006, 2007, so quite a long time ago. And remember the clip I showed you at the beginning, the person that inspired me a lot during the time that helped me discover my own style? That person was called Bonkura, and he actually died at the end of 2007. That's when the news reached that Bonkura died. I never met him. He was Japanese. I wrote with him on a forum trading pens, and that's kind of a very fond memory that I have from the time where this person I looked up to, and I tried to mimic his style, was trading pens with me. So that made me really proud and was really a great moment. And unfortunately, I lost all these messages. These old international forums don't exist anymore. They've gone through several revisions throughout the time, and these private messages don't exist anymore. And I'm really sad about that because we wrote like back and forth. He had the vision that pens testing would become like an international successful thing, and it kind of never did. While it was very popular at some school places, it is something that requires months and months of training. So, a lot of people that discovered it in an afternoon would get immediately frustrated. They wouldn't achieve anything, would give up anymore. So it wasn't a thing that would become hugely popular with kids and teenagers. And as well, you see it once and you've seen it. You don't need to see it much longer. I mean, I get a kick out of watching different kind of tricks, and I understand like when certain tricks are difficult and when they are not. And so, I can appreciate it on a different level than just a regular person watching it. But then also in 2018, so I mentioned that we would build our own pens like this one. So this is actually, you know, a combination, a modification out of several different pens. You see the grip parts here, the blue and the red one interlaced with like a gray line there. This is coming from an entirely different pen. The metal tips here are from a pen called Dr. Grip. That's why this mod is called Dr. KT, because these tips came from a pen called Dr. Grip. And the pen body itself used to be was also branded something with KT, if I remember correctly, the original version, the gray one, something like this. I think that's where the name came from. I'm not sure anymore. Yeah, so that's what we would do. These pens also don't really write anymore, so they are so heavily modified that they feel really nice in your hand, but are not really intended to writing anymore. Now I have one last thing I want to kind of show you. So in 2018, I think it was the first time that actually companies were manufacturing the first like not professional pen testing pens, but like they try to make a product out of this, like you have yo-yos and other kind of skill-based, dexterity-based kind of things. They would try to create pens. And so I bought one of these, and I've actually never, I might have had one in my hand, but I never owned one. So I got one, and I thought I could unpack this with you and then compare it to, like, you know, the old school style built, assembled kind of pen. So this is like a random company. I don't even know what the company is. But this also never really caught on in the pen testing community, because, you know, everybody is able to build their own kind of tools, their own pens to their likings. They can modify it, they can add weight, they can remove weight, they can add length to make it feel how you want it to feel. And so these kind of products are, I guess, only like what, you know, I guess teenagers that get into this hobby might buy this and think they could you know, do something with it, but it's nothing somebody really in the community would use. So let's see. Okay, so it's a little bit heavier, and what I can tell right away is that the ends are extremely heavy compared to the middle part. This one is much more balanced, so here the weight is not as extreme on the outside. And yeah, I mean, otherwise it kind of resembles it, right? You have metal tips, you have a grip part here, a bit styled in there as well, you know. You can see it's a bit longer, and generally having longer and heavier pens and pens with more weight on the side, it's easier. Compare that to a regular pencil. Something like this is extremely difficult to do pen testing with, because there's basically, there's no momentum, there's no weight on the ends, and it's very light and it's very thin. Somebody who, you know, has experience and practice a lot can still do stuff with them, but it requires a lot more fine motor control and practice than something like this would take. But depending on it's not like saying make it as heavy as possible, as long as possible, or whatever, because the longer it is, or the long or shorter, will change the style you're spinning with. The speed the pen is flying through your hands, and the way how smooth or not smooth it is changes a lot. So you would, through those months and months of practice, you would kind of figure out the pen you wanted. Yeah. Okay, so this is an extremely heavy pen that definitely will make your fingers tired pretty quickly. You can't like practice with this for hours, I think. Also, because it's so heavy, the pen is moving fairly slow, which makes it easier for practicing if the pen is moving slower, because you have a bit more control over it and you can kind of better see what's happening. But yeah, I find it too heavy. I find it too slow. There's like, it's not as much fun as I would like think this one here. Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting development. Never really caught on. I would be curious, has anybody of you ever bought one of these kind of products, or anybody of you always built their own pens to test with? I would be very curious about that. yeah, the whole topic makes me really nostalgic because, I basically this whole community, pen testing community, is a big part of my life. Actually, it followed me along for quite a few years as a teenager in school. I was pretty deep into that kind of community, made a lot of friends, still have friends from that time. So yeah, it was a great time. Uh, the moral of this story, I presume, is that there are subcultures everywhere. The weirdest subcultures exist, and if you are on the internet, sometimes you will discover them. And if something is interesting to you, just dig in and communicate with people, and you will, over time, you will meet more people, and you will have fun together. You need the journey. The learning part is what the community defines, and the learning together and the moving forward together, exchanging tricks, helping each other, making tutorials for each other, sharing the different tools you would build and how you would modify them, tips on where you can get the best tools, stuff like this, meeting with people in person and showing them in person certain new tricks. This is what it was all about, and that's what I really loved about it. And yeah, and in some way, you can kind of see that in those terms there are quite some parallels to infosec and the stuff we do on this channel as well. Push yourself. It's okay to fail. You will drop the pen 1,000 times, but it doesn't matter. And over time, you will slowly learn, and you hopefully engage in the community and be part of the community, which means giving as well, and sharing what you know with your friends, and try to help them as well. And yeah, so I'm sorry that I don't have a proper video prepared for this year. I hope next year I have time again to prepare a proper video. However, I didn't want to just do nothing, because I felt like I have to at this point to keep the tradition, and I thought a live stream would also be kind of funny as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry that I couldn't really look at chat at all. I will read the chat afterwards, what you have wrote. And thanks for being around, and I hope maybe hopefully you don't start fiddling around with a pen, because it always annoys the people besides you, but it's definitely fun. Thank you. Bye.